Hey guys, tonight we step onto a wide, wind-swept plain somewhere in the northern steppe, around 10,000 BCE. The air is sharp and cold, still carrying the bite of an ice age that hasn't entirely released its grip, though you can feel the thaw creeping in. The glaciers that once loomed like white mountains are receding, leaving behind muddy rivers, soggy tundra, and stretches of grassland that still feed great herds. In the distance the ground trembles, not from an earthquake but from the heavy, deliberate tread of creatures that seem almost too massive to exist. Woolly mammoths, their shaggy coats glinting with frost, trudge together in a herd, tusks curving like ivory crescents against the grey sky. Their breath hangs in clouds that drift like steam, visible even from far away. You stand with a band of hunters, spears strapped across their backs, eyes narrowed against the wind. There's tension in their silence, the kind of hush that only comes before something dangerous and necessary. Because tonight you're here for food, for shelter, for survival, and you probably won't survive this. If you're ready for the last great hunt, chasing mammoths to the end, 10,000 BCE, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Let's see who's still awake in this ice age with me. And when the hunt's over, whisper in the comments how long you think you'd last chasing mammoths across frozen earth. Let's begin our journey together, friends, through the cold winds, through the ancient grasslands, into the heart of the last mammoth hunt. The world you step into is a shifting one. For tens of thousands of years the Pleistocene had carved its stage with glaciers and endless cold. The mammoth steppe stretched from Western Europe across Siberia, into the Bering Land Bridge, and deep into North America, a band of treeless plains filled with grasses, herbs, and low shrubs that nourished countless grazing animals. Now around 10,000 BCE, the warming earth begins to undo it all. Great ice sheets shrink, spilling meltwater into new rivers and lakes. Birch and pine creep across the plains, slowly replacing the open pasture. The megafauna that thrived here, woolly rhinos, giant deer, cave lions, are thinning, but mammoths still roam. For hunters, the climate shift means adaptation. Where once food could be found in thick herds grazing endless grasslands, now it takes sharp eyes and patient tracking to find enough meat for the clan. Smaller animals, reindeer, bison, horses, still provide meat, but none offer the same reward as a mammoth. A single kill can sustain dozens of people, fill the camp with meat, fat, hides and bone tools. It is both a treasure and a trial. The people around you live on the knife edge of this transition. They are late upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, clever and resourceful, masters of stone, bone and wood. Their lives are nomadic, moving with the seasons and the herds, clustering along river valleys where fish, birds and game gather. Their shelters range from hide-covered wooden frames to the famous bone huts built from the rib cages and skulls of mammoths themselves. Step inside one, and you'll smell the rich smoke of fire, the musk of animal fat rubbed into hides, the faint sweetness of drying berries. This is a world of practical ingenuity, no waste, no luxury. But here on the open steppe, it's the mammoth that defines their story. 10 tons of muscle and hair, standing as tall as a small house, crowned with tusks that could skewer a man in an instant. They move slowly, yet their sheer size makes them forces of nature. To face them is to face the edge of human daring, part calculation, part desperation. Even now, standing with the hunters, you hear one mutter a half joke. If we miss, we become the meat. Everyone laughs, a quick burst of nerves in the cold air, because the truth cuts close. What makes the risk worth it is survival itself. In a world where winter nights can stretch forever, where forests creep in to choke the grass, and where smaller animals are harder to pin down, the mammoth remains the ultimate prize. They are slow, predictable, and full of resources if you can bring them down. A single kill means weeks of plenty. Children will gnaw marrow from bones, elders will sit warm in huts, stitched from mammoth hides, hunters will sharpen new blades from ivory tusks. Entire lives are shaped by one hunt. And so at this moment, you feel the deep weight of tension. The herd ahead of you is grazing near a low riverbank, unaware that a group of humans waits in silence. They chew tough sedges and grasses, shake snow from their backs, and rumble low sounds to one another that vibrate in your chest. The hunters crouch low, each one already rehearsing the plan, how to drive, where to flank, who will cast the first spear. The landscape tells its own story too. The ground is scarred with footprints the size of barrels, pressed deep into the mud. Piles of dung steam faintly in the frosty air, a reminder of how recently the herd passed this way. broken shrubs and torn earth mark where trunks tore up roots. Every trace is both a warning and a promise. This is not myth, this is not legend, it's survival. The last great hunt of the Ice Age is beginning, and you're standing at its edge, heartbeat quick, breath sharp in the cold. Soon the steppe will echo with shouting, trumpeting, and the crack of spears striking flesh. For now there is only the silence before the storm. The hunters you stand among are the product of millennia of adaptation. By 10,000 BCE, humans have stretched across nearly every continent, but here in the north their lives still revolve around the rhythm of herds and the shifting of seasons. Their faces are weathered by cold winds, their hands rough with calluses from stone tools and wooden shafts. They live lean, moving often, carrying what they own strapped across their backs or lashed to sleds dragged by dogs. There is no permanence here, only the constant chase of food, shelter and safety. You squat by the fire with them the night before the hunt, embers crackling against the raw silence of the steppe. Someone passes around a piece of dried reindeer meat, tough as leather, and you chew until your jaw aches. A few children sleep huddled in hides nearby, their tiny bodies bundled so tightly you wonder how they can breathe. An elder traces shapes in the dirt with a stick, perhaps telling a story of a hunt long past, when mammoths filled the horizon like dark clouds. These are Upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, living at the tail end of a world that has shaped them for tens of thousands of years. Their shelters vary depending on where they roam. In open plains, you might find semi-permanent mammoth bone huts, their rib cages forming arches, hides stretched taut to keep out the icy wind, and hearths at the center glowing with the smell of burning bone or driftwood. In the forest edge they might build lean-tos of poles and bark. They are experts at improvisation. If the land offers it, they use it. Their clothing is equally ingenious. Mammoth hide is too heavy to wear, but reindeer, elk and smaller animal skins are cut, scraped, softened with fat, and sewn with sinew into boots, leggings, tunics and hoods. Every hunter you see is layered, fur turned inward for warmth, outward for shedding snow. Decorative beads of bone and amber dangle from a few garments, not vanity so much as a symbol of identity, maybe even spiritual protection. Someone has a necklace carved from a fox's tooth, another wears bracelets of mammoth ivory, etched with crosshatch patterns. These tiny details, nearly lost in the cold twilight, are the fingerprints of a culture. And then of course there are the tools. You notice a man sharpening a long spear point, the stone tip glittering under firelight, its flint, shaped by hours of careful percussion and pressure flaking until the edge is sharp enough to split hide and muscle. Some points are fixed to spears with sinew and resin, others to lighter throwing darts meant for an atlatl, a spear thrower carved from antler or wood that extends the arm and launches a projectile faster, harder, farther. Beside him, another works bone needles through a torn hide, the rhythmic motion as practiced as breathing. Every object has a purpose, and every purpose is survival. The hunter's social life is as structured as their tools. The group you are with numbers about 30 souls, men, women, children, elders. Don't make the mistake of thinking only the men matter in a hunt. Women gather, track, process hides, butcher, prepare food and sometimes drive animals into traps. Elders provide memory where herds once crossed, how rivers swelled with spring melt, what tools worked and which failed. Children learn by watching, by imitating, by carrying small loads, and by playing at throwing miniature spears. Each person is part of the system, and to fall out of it means death. At night, the talk turns to the mammoths. You catch phrases like the big ones to the north, or tracks near the river's bend. The younger hunters boast about how close they'll get, about throwing the first spear, about standing fearless before tusks. The older ones keep quieter. They know the cost of bravado. They carry scars across their arms and faces, reminders of hunts that nearly went wrong. One elder, his hair white as frost, mutters that a mammoth can crush a man without even noticing. You get the sense he's not exaggerating. Still, the hunger is real. These people are always calculating the balance between risk and reward. Small game fills bellies, but never stocks, stores. Mammoth, though, that's not just meat. That's bone for tools, ivory for carving, hide for tents, sinew for thread, dung for fuel. A mammoth isn't just a meal, it's a full package of survival. Like someone dropped a living supermarket onto the tundra, it's no wonder they plan their lives around hunting them. The hunter's rituals reflect this weight. Before the hunt, some sprinkle powdered ochre on their weapons, staining them red like blood. Others whisper words over the tips, perhaps to honor the spirit of the animal, perhaps to steady their own shaking hands. You don't need to believe in the spirits to understand the nerves when facing a beast that could flatten you with one swing of its tusks. A little spiritual insurance seems wise. As dawn approaches, the camp stirs. Fires are stamped out, hides are rolled, children bundled to move with the slower group. The hunters stretch in silence, checking straps, tying weapons, testing points. You feel the quiet hum of focus, the way everyone avoids wasted words. The only sounds are the scrape of stone against flint, the creak of sinew cords, the cough of someone shaking off the cold. When the first light breaks across the horizon, painting the grass with pale gold, the hunters move out. They walk with the certainty of people who have done this 100 times, feet falling in rhythm, eyes scanning the ground for signs. You keep pace though every crunch of frost beneath your boots feels too loud. Out here, silence is both weapon and shield. Soon, you spot it, the vast, unmistakable print of a mammoth's foot pressed deep into the soft earth. It's wider than your chest, and filled with meltwater that glints in the early sun. Around it, smaller tracks, calves. The hunters exchange glances. A herd passed here, not long ago. Dung steams faintly nearby, proof as clear as smoke that you're close. The pace quickens, boughs of grass are bent, shrubs snapped, all telling the same story. Giants have walked here, the people spread out, eyes narrowing to catch the faintest of signs. To you it feels impossible. How could anyone read so much from crushed plants and scattered droppings? But to them it's as plain as footprints in snow. Ahead, the steppe widens, opening toward the river valley, and somewhere beyond, the mammoths wait, unaware that a band of humans is closing in with spears, patience, and a hunger sharpened by weeks of lean meals. The great beasts will soon learn what it means to be the last of their kind, and you will learn what it takes to chase them down. The animal you are stalking now is not just another creature on the plain, it is the mammoth, the largest land mammal of the Ice Age and one of the most formidable challenges any hunter could face. Standing nearly 4 meters tall at the shoulder and weighing up to 10 tons, a woolly mammoth is an avalanche of muscle wrapped in a coat of shaggy hair that hangs in long, coarse strands, sometimes nearly a meter long. Its ears are small compared to modern elephants, tucked tight to conserve heat, but its tusks are enormous, spiraling arcs of ivory, some curving over 4 meters, sharp at the tips, strong enough to smash bone and wood alike. Up close you notice the way its body is built for the bitter cold. A thick layer of fat, sometimes nearly 4 inches deep, lies beneath its skin, a natural insulation that keeps warmth locked in and allows the mammoth to weather even the harshest steppe winters. Its trunk, long and dexterous, plucks up frozen grasses and roots buried beneath snow, swinging them into its mouth with the slow grace of a creature that has known this land for ages. Its mouth grinds those plants on massive ridged molars, chewing through material that would choke any human jaw. Mammoths are not solitary wanderers. They live in herds, often led by a matriarch, the oldest female, whose memory guides them along ancient migration routes. Around her, calves stumble and trumpet, watched over by protective mothers, while younger males loiter at the edges, occasionally testing each other in small bouts of shoving and tusk rattling. The herds move seasonally, following the grasses across vast distances, thousands of kilometers across the mammoth steppe, from the low river valleys to the rolling tundra hills. Their sense of smell is sharp enough to catch the scent of predators long before they appear, and their hearing through inphonic rumbles and trumpets keeps the herd tightly knit. Even when spread across the plain, the ground sometimes vibrates faintly with their communications, a low, resonant hum that human ears can barely catch but that the hunters swear they feel in their bones. For people like the hunters at your side, the mammoth is both gift and nightmare. Its size makes it an irresistible target. One animal can yield thousands of pounds of meat, hides large enough to stretch into shelter, bones that can frame huts or sharpen into tools, and ivory that can be carved into needles, ornaments or spear points. Even its dung is fuel, drying into chunks that burn steadily in a hearth. Nothing goes to waste. A mammoth provides so much that entire communities can sustain themselves for months on the yield of a single successful hunt. But the danger is legendary. A mammoth defending itself can topple trees, trample hunters, or swing its tusks with enough force to send bodies flying. Unlike smaller prey, there's no quick kill with a single arrow or spear. It takes coordination, strategy and courage, or depending on how you look at it, desperation. If the herd is startled, the hunters risk being crushed beneath a stampede. If the hunters hesitate, the mammoth simply lumbers away, vanishing into forests or across rivers, leaving only a trail of flattened grass and steaming dung. You crouch near one of those dung piles now, The steam rising faintly in the morning chill, a hunter pokes it with a stick, squeezes it between his fingers, and grins, still warm. The herd is close. He points to the horizon where the land dips into a shallow valley. Already, faint shapes move in the distance, hulking, dark against the lighter grass. It's not just their physical form that makes mammoths unforgettable, it's the way they dominate the imagination. Long before writing, people painted their shapes on cave walls, carved them into ivory figurines, etched them onto bones. In France's Rouffignac cave, mammoth outlines lined the walls in curling ranks, tusks exaggerated, their shapes drawn by flickering torchlight thousands of years ago. To paint a mammoth was not just to depict food, it was to capture power, to honor the hunt, maybe to summon luck for hunts yet to come. Even their deaths became part of human story. At some sites, mammoth bones have been arranged into circular huts, their skulls and femurs stacked into walls, tusks forming entryways. Archaeologists marvel at the sheer labor, dragging bones weighing hundreds of pounds, arranging them carefully, covering them with hides. Inside, fires once burned, smoke curling up through the gaps, families sleeping beneath the ribs of giants. Living literally inside the bones of a mammoth is a reminder of how closely human lives and these animals intertwined. Watching the herd now, you see calves tugging at their mothers' shaggy coats, young bulls jostling at the edges, adults sweeping trunks through the grass. It's almost peaceful until you remember what's about to happen. The hunters beside you murmur low, pointing at the smaller animals, calculating their chances. A calf is tempting, easier to bring down, less dangerous, but tradition and necessity demand bigger rewards. A healthy adult can feed everyone. You feel the collective hunger of the group like a second heartbeat, pulsing in time with your own. Still, the decision is not taken lightly. The mammoth is more than food, it is a being with a place in the balance of the world. The hunters know this. They whisper thanks before the hunt even begins, muttering small chants under their breath, hoping to appease whatever spirits watch over the herd. Whether those spirits are real or not, the ritual matters. It steadies hands, calms nerves, and turns fear into focus. As you watch the mammoths drift across the valley, heavy-footed and slow, it's easy to imagine they will always be here, massive, ancient, eternal, but you know better. This is 10,000 BCE. The climate is shifting. Forests are spreading, herds are dwindling. These giants are already stepping toward their end. For now though, the hunters see only the present, a chance to bring one down, to feast, to survive. The mammoths see only grass and sky. Neither yet knows what will happen when their worlds collide in the valley ahead. The ground underfoot is soft, broken with patches of thawing permafrost, and the hunters pause often, crouching low to read the signs left by the herd. Tracking mammoths is both science and instinct, honed across generations. To you the landscape might look chaotic, mud, trampled grass, scattered shrubs, but to the hunters it is a living story written in crushed stems, footprints, and dung. A man kneels by a depression in the earth, running his palm along the rim. It's a footprint, wide and deep, the edges still crisp. He presses his hand into the center and nods, as if he can feel the weight that once sank there. The herd is fresh. Another hunter plucks a tuft of grass from the track, sniffs, then chews thoughtfully. Don't worry, he's not looking for flavor, he's checking for dampness, freshness, maybe even hints of what the mammoths grazed on. Every clue is a step closer. Dung, too, becomes evidence. Steaming piles mark where the herd lingered, their fibers still green and pungent. The hunters poke through it with sticks, even taste it on occasion. Yes, you gag, but hey, people have done stranger things for survival. Besides, you've probably eaten things in modern life without knowing the ingredients, so who are you to judge? From this they judge not just proximity but health. Loose or hard dung means different diets, tells whether the animals are stressed or calm. As the group fans out, you begin to see patterns. Mammoths don't wander aimlessly, they follow grazing routes along rivers, valleys and ridges where grasses grow thickest. The hunters know these routes almost as well as the herds themselves, passed down in memory, reinforced by years of watching. One elder gestures toward a distant line of willows hugging a riverbank. They'll rest there, his expression seems to say. Shade, water, soft soil for digging roots. It's all predictable if you know what to look for. What surprises you most is how quiet this all is. No one talks loudly. Communication comes in hand signals, quick whistles, even bird-like clicks. Hunters crouch, point, tap their spears. A raised hand stops the group. A finger tracing an arc means move wide. These are the Ice Age walkie-talkies, refined by necessity. A spooked mammoth herd doesn't just trot off, they bolt in a thunder of hooves that could flatten the entire hunting party. Silence is safety. You crouch beside a younger hunter, barely more than a boy, as he studies a patch of churned earth. He shows you with gestures how one mammoth lagged behind, its print slightly deeper, toes splayed, maybe it was limping, maybe it was old. Either way, this is valuable knowledge, the weak link in the chain, the one animal easier to isolate. You can almost hear the strategy forming in their heads. Divide the herd, cut off the straggler, push it into terrain where escape is impossible. Ahead, the landscape opens into a shallow valley. The grass sways in a faint breeze, dotted with willows and damp hollows. You see movement at first, just shifting shadows, then shapes solidifying. The mammoths are there, spread loosely, some grazing, some resting. Calves stumble between adults, their tiny trunks swinging clumsily. A bull lingers at the edge, his tusks gleaming pale against the sky. The hunters drop flat instantly. Hearts pound. A woman at your side presses her face into the grass, then peers up with slow, deliberate care. The herd is unaware, trunks sweeping low, tails flicking against flies. But the hunters don't relax. This is where skill becomes patience. Hours pass in tense silence. The hunters watch every detail, which mammoths are most alert, which paths they follow, how the calves move within the group. Someone sketches patterns in the dirt with a stick, lines, circles, arrows, showing how they'll approach. The plan is simple but deadly. Use the terrain. A curve of the valley leads into soft marshy ground near the river. If they can drive a mammoth there, its heavy feet will sink, slowing it, trapping it. Spears can finish the rest. Of course, simple doesn't mean easy. You watch as hunters position themselves with the precision of chess pieces. Some creep wide, circling toward the far side of the herd. Others stay hidden closer, ready to drive the animals forward. Every move is calculated to keep the wind in their favor, the noise low, the surprise intact. You can feel the tension coil tighter with each passing moment. From where you lie you notice more signs of mammoth life. Bark stripped from willows by powerful trunks, deep gouges in the soil where tusks pried up roots, a fallen calf's skull half buried in the mud, tusks only small nubs. Life and death are scattered here, reminders that mammoths live long but are never invincible. One hunter beside you grips his spear so tightly, his knuckles whiten. He glances at the herd, then at the marshy bend of the valley. His jaw clenches, and you know the thought in his mind. This is it, a chance to bring down a giant. You steady your breath. The herd is close, the hunters are ready, and the valley itself has become the trap. All that remains is the signal, the shift from silent shadows to the roar of pursuit, the leap from patience to chaos. The tools that rest in the hunter's hands are the product of thousands of years of trial, failure, and refinement. Weapons may seem primitive by modern standards, but in 10,000 BCE, every sharpened edge, every binding of sinew and every carved notch could mean the difference between feeding the clan and being trampled beneath tusks. You crouch beside a pile of gear laid out in the grass. The centerpiece is the spear, a shaft of seasoned wood, straightened by fire, hardened at the point or fitted with a flint blade. Some are short for stabbing, meant for close combat. Others are longer, intended for thrusting from behind cover. A few have detachable points lashed on with sinew and plant resin, designed to stay buried deep in flesh even if the shaft breaks away. The hunters don't care if they lose the wooden shaft. What matters is that the stone or bone head keeps cutting inside the mammoth. Then there is the atlat, the spear thrower. At first glance it looks like nothing more than a hooked stick, carved from antler or wood, but in skilled hands it's a multiplier of force. By extending the arm's lever, it hurls a light dart with bone or flint tip at speeds and distances the human arm could never achieve alone. You watch as a young hunter practices with one, his dart sailing in a clean arc before thudding into the earth. The sound carries a promise. When that point meets flesh, it will punch deeper than you'd think possible. Blades are everywhere, flakes of flint, chart or obsidian napped until their edges are sharper than surgical steel. Some are hafted into handles to form knives, others are used bare, pinched between fingers to slice hide or meat. You glimpse a pouch filled with tiny microliths, razor-like slivers that can be mounted in rows to form serrated edges. These are multi-purpose, equally useful for cutting sinew, scraping hides, or even as backup tips for light arrows. Not all tools are lethal. Rope woven from twisted plant fibers, stakes hardened in fire, and woven nets of sinew all have their place in a hunt. Pits can be disguised with brush and lined with spikes. Fires can be lit behind a herd to funnel them forward. The hunters are not merely armed, they are engineers of opportunity, turning terrain into a weapon just as much as their spears. Even clothing plays a role. Hides are wrapped tight for warmth, but the hunter's boots, soft-soled, lined with fur, allow them to move almost silently across grass and snow. Their belts hold pouches of stone flakes, bone awls, and small needles. One man wears a necklace strung with wolf teeth, which might be decoration, or might be a way of drawing on the predator's strength. You suspect it's both. As you study these weapons, you realize how intimate they are. Each spear, each atlat, each blade bears the mark of its maker. Carved grips, smoothed shafts, polished tips. Tools are inherited, repaired, reshafted, resharpened. A hunter's weapons are an extension of their body, honed until instinct guides the throw, the thrust, the cut. Yet no matter how refined, the weapons alone cannot bring down a mammoth. A 10-ton animal doesn't fall from a single dart or blade, it falls from strategy, hunters working together in precise coordination, and that's the most powerful tool of all, the ability to cooperate. You see it now in how they practice before the strike. Two hunters feint toward one another with spears, rehearsing who will move first, who will drive, who will flank. Another signals silently, pointing at the marshy bend of the valley. Everyone nods in turn, committing the plan to muscle memory. No one dares speak loudly, but the message is clear. One mistake could mean disaster. Still, there's a lightness beneath the tension. A younger man jabs a friend with the butt of his spear, earning a hissed laugh. Someone mutters a joke about the mammoth stomping him flat before he ever gets to throw. Even here on the edge of a deadly hunt, humor survives. It has to. You can't carry fear without something to balance it. Finally, you hear the low whistle of a leader giving the signal. Weapons are gathered, atlateds looped over shoulders, darts gripped in calloused fists. The hunters spread, melting into the grass and brush like shadows. The herd still grazes, unaware of the danger drawing in from all sides. Your pulse thrums with the same rhythm as the others. This is it, the moment when tools sharpened in firelight and strategies whispered under hides will be tested against flesh, bone and raw power. The hunters are ready, their weapons glinting faintly in the cold sun. The mammoths are still calm, but the silence before the storm is breaking. Soon the air will fill with shouts, trumpets and the crack of wood on hide. Soon you'll see whether the stone, wood and bone in human hands can stand against the most massive beasts of the Ice Age. The herd grazes lazily in the shallow valley, unaware that humans have ringed them like patient wolves. From your position in the grass, you feel the tension surge in your chest, the anticipation that comes before a dangerous gamble. This is where tactics, not weapons, will decide everything, because no matter how sharp a flint blade or how powerful an atlat, without the right positioning, you're just a bug trying to sting a mountain. The hunters don't rush, they rely on movement, pressure, and fear to shake the herd. It starts subtly. Two figures on the far side stand and move closer, not running, just walking steadily, their silhouettes tall and deliberate. Mammoths are cautious animals. They notice a bull raises its head, ears twitching, trunk lifting to test the air. A low rumble passes through the herd, deep and uneasy. That's when the rest of the hunters act. From another flank, two women light dry grass with firebrands carried from camp, letting the smoke drift toward the mammoths. The breeze is perfect, carrying the acrid smell forward. The herd shifts, restless now, the calves pressing closer to their mothers. Fire and human presence are not to be ignored. The goal isn't panic, not yet. The hunters want direction. They need the mammoths to move, not scatter. If the herd bolts in every direction, the hunt is over. So they guide them, pressing from two sides, leaving the marshy bend of the valley open. It looks like an escape route to the mammoths. In truth, it's the trap. You move with the line, heart hammering as you watch the giants sway and shuffle. A hunter beside you raises his spear and lets out a sharp cry, high-pitched, startling. Others follow, shouting, banging spear shafts against wood, sending a volley of sound crashing over the herd. The mammoths trumpet in alarm, a deafening blast that vibrates through your ribs. For a moment you swear the ground shakes with the echo. Then they move, slowly at first, then faster. The herd lumbers toward the gap. Calves stumble to keep up, mothers push them forward with trunks, bulls flank protectively. The hunters shout louder, advancing in coordinated waves, making themselves seem more numerous, more threatening. It's a dangerous bluff, because if one mammoth decides to charge instead of run, the line will break like grass under a storm. The air fills with chaos, Birds explode from the willows, startled by the racket. Smoke from the burning brush drifts low, stinging your eyes. One young bull wheels suddenly, trumpeting furiously, ears flaring wide. For a heartbeat, it looks ready to charge. You feel your stomach flip, every nerve screaming that this is it. You're about to be flattened like a careless bug. But the hunters hold steady, spears raised, voices sharp. The bull hesitates, then wheels back to the herd, following the others into the narrowing valley. The terrain does the rest. The ground dips toward the marshy bend, where water seeps just beneath the grass. The mammoths plunge forward, but their weight betrays them. The soil gives way, sucking at their massive feet. Mud clings to their legs, pulling them down inch by inch. A calf squeals, stuck fast, while an adult bellows in rage, trunk whipping the air. The herd bunches tighter, milling, confused, their escape funneling into the worst possible ground. This is the moment the hunters wanted. Spears are raised, atlatls loaded. You see hunters dart closer, launching darts that sail in long arcs before striking the mammoth's flanks. The beasts roar and thrash, but the mud keeps them from charging effectively. Another volley follows, stone points biting into thick hide, some glancing off, others sinking deep. Still, it's not easy. A wounded bull swings its tusks in wide arcs, gouging the earth, snapping saplings like twigs. One hunter dives aside just in time as a trunk slams down where he stood. Another is thrown backward when a tusk catches his spear and hurls it and him into the air. You wince, certain he won't rise, but somehow he staggers to his feet, blood streaming from his forehead, screaming defiance. The noise is overwhelming. Trumpets, human cries, the wet squelch of mud, the thud of wood striking flesh. Spears rain in, some breaking, others sticking. The mammoths are massive, terrifying, but the hunters' persistence gnaws at them like wolves at a stag. Every dart, every wound, every shout adds pressure, driving the herd deeper into exhaustion and fear. You realize now the strategy is as much psychological as physical. The hunters aren't trying to kill instantly, they're wearing the animals down, bleeding them, tiring them, sowing panic. Even a beast this size can collapse if forced to fight long enough. At last, one of the herd falters. A cow, her flank pierced by several darts, struggles to pull free of the mud. She trumpets weakly, legs trembling, and sinks to her knees. The hunters surge forward, shouting, driving more spears into her sides. The kill is near. And yet, even in this moment, you sense the risk. One mistake, one step too close, and the mammoth's final thrash could crush a skull, shatter ribs, end a life. Courage and recklessness blur into one. You hold your breath as hunters circle, eyes locked, waiting for the chance to finish what they've begun. The trap has worked. The mammoths are ensnared. Now comes the hardest part, the first strike. The tension in the air is unbearable, like the moment before lightning cracks across the sky. The herd is bunched in the marshy bend of the valley, trumpeting, thrashing, their panic mounting as spears and darts rain in. But now comes the moment that separates planning from execution, hunters from scavengers. Someone has to get close. Someone has to strike first. A young hunter edges forward at letter, gripped in sweaty hands. He loads a dart, raises the laver, and hurls. The projectile whistles through the air, striking a bull's flank. The beast bellows, spinning, mud spraying in wide arcs. It's wounded but far from finished. The boy's hands shake, and for a second, you think he'll collapse under his own fear. Then an older man grips his shoulder, steadies him, and with grim nod, they advance together. The hunter's strategy is simple. Harry from a distance until one animal weakens, then close in. But simple doesn't make it safe. To stand within reach of a mammoth's tusks is to stand before a living wall of rage and muscle. Even now, as you crouch in the mud, you feel the ground quiver under every footstep. A single miscalculation, and you'll be nothing more than a stain in the soil. The first close strike comes sudden and brutal. A hunter darts in low, driving a heavy spear deep into the side of a faltering cow. She screams. Yes, the sound is more scream than trumpet, and swings her trunk wildly, clipping his shoulder and sending him spinning into the mud. He scrambles out, alive but shaken, as others rush forward to keep pressure on the beast. Spears thud against hide. Some shatter, others stick, quivering as blood begins to mat the mammoth's thick hair. Still, she fights. A tusk gouges the earth where two hunters had stood only seconds earlier. The sheer power of the animal is terrifying. You feel it in your bones. If she breaks free, half this hunting party won't live to see another dawn. But persistence is the hunter's greatest weapon. Another volley of darts arcs in from the edges, biting deep into the mammoth's chest and side. Blood darkens her fur, her trumpets weaken. She sways, massive legs trembling, trying to shift her weight free of the mud. And then the charge, not from her, but from one of the bulls still standing strong. He barrels forward, trumpeting so loudly your ears ring. Hunters scatter like startled birds. The bull slams into the marsh, tusks cutting a deadly path, mud spraying like waves. One hunter goes down hard, his spear ripped from his hands. For a heartbeat, the bull's foot comes down, missing his body by inches. The man scrambles up, eyes wide, caked in mud but alive. The hunters regroup instantly. This is what they've trained for: chaos, fear, near death turned into rhythm. The leader shouts once, sharp and commanding, and the others respond, forming a loose circle around the cow. The bull's rage has only bought them time. The real target is still the faltering cow. You watch as two hunters edge close, their spears poised. One thrusts hard, burying his point deep into her chest. She staggers, moaning low, her trunk dragging in the mud. The other leaps forward, driving his spear into the base of her neck. The force nearly tears the shaft from his hands, but it holds. The cow collapses to her knees, then her side, the earth trembling as she crashes down. The noise is deafening. Trumpets from the remaining mammoths echo like thunderclaps, mournful and enraged. Calves squeal, pressing against their mothers. The herd surges, threatening to break free. For a moment it feels like the entire plan will unravel, one dead mammoth bought at the cost of the hunter's own survival. But the mud holds them, the fire smoke still drifts, and the hunters' shouts rise louder, rallying, reminding the herd that humans are everywhere. Spears flashing, relentless. The mammoths retreat a few steps, their lines breaking. The hunters seize the moment, swarming the fallen cow, driving more spears into her side to make sure she cannot rise again. It's brutal, and it's raw, but it's necessary. The first strike has landed. The cow lies still now, her breath gone, her massive body steaming in the cold air. A giant has fallen. The hunters don't celebrate yet. Too much danger remains. The herd still mills nearby, massive shapes in the smoke and haze, unpredictable and furious. The hunters' eyes stay sharp, their bodies tense, because one kill is victory, yes, but survival isn't guaranteed until the herd withdraws. And so you stand there in the mud, heart pounding, as the echo of trumpets fades. You've witnessed the moment most dreaded and most desired, the first strike, the taking down of a giant, but the hunt isn't finished, not by a long shot. The cow lies still now, her huge body steaming in the cold air, but the hunt doesn't end with her collapse. In many ways, this is the most dangerous moment. A mammoth doesn't die quietly, and a herd doesn't always accept defeat. Around you the other giants wheel and trumpet, their panic shifting to rage. Calves press close to their mothers, who form a shield of tusks and bulk. The bulls at the edges toss their heads and stamp, throwing mud high into the air. One wrong move, and they'll charge, not away but straight at you. The hunters know this. They don't rush the carcass blindly. Instead, they form a perimeter, spears raised, voices sharp, pressing forward and back in rhythmic waves. They shout, whistle, slap spear shafts against the ground, noise and motion meant to keep the herd unsteady, just long enough to make them retreat. Your ears ring with the chaos. The trumpets of the mammoths echo like rolling thunder, the shouts of the hunters cut like flint strikes, and beneath it all the wet squelch of mud, the hiss of fire, the ragged breathing of every living thing caught in this battle for survival. The next step is finishing the wounded. The cow still twitches faintly, muscles spasming, her great chest shuddering with the last attempts at breath. Hunters dart in and drive more spears downward, into her neck, her sides, until the movements stop. It's not cruelty, it's certainty. An animal this large cannot be left half alive. If she rose again, even for a moment, she could kill half the hunting party. Still, the herd doesn't flee easily. A young bull charges a few paces, tossing his tusks, tearing up grass and soil. Hunters scatter, then regroup, letting him vent his rage at empty ground before shouting again, pressing with more spears. The noise, the smoke, the flashing movement, it overwhelms the mammoth's instincts. Slowly, reluctantly they back away, rumbling low, herding calves with their trunks, their dark shapes receding toward the far side of the valley. You exhale in relief, only realizing now that you've been holding your breath so tightly your chest aches. The danger has not vanished, but it has passed. The herd is withdrawing, leaving behind the fallen cow, a mountain of flesh that will now become the focus of every hunter's effort. The hunters approach carefully, spears still ready. One man circles the cow's head, prodding with the butt of his spear, no movement. Another tests her eye with the tip, no blink. Only then do they begin to lower their weapons. Only then do their shouts shift into ragged laughter, half relief, half triumph. It's a dangerous kind of joy though. They know what it cost, blood on their own arms, broken shafts, the near misses that could have ended lives. Still, the first kill of the season means survival, and survival is worth every scar. You kneel beside the carcass. Up close, the mammoth is overwhelming. Her tusks arc outward like massive ivory scythes. Her fur is coarse, clumped with blood and mud. Her trunk lies slack in the muck, longer than your body. Her size is incomprehensible. She dwarfs the hunters clustered around her, who look like children beside a toppled tree. The finishing begins with ritual. An elder kneels at her head, sprinkling powdered ochre onto her brow, murmuring words you don't quite understand. It's a blessing, a thanks, a recognition that this death feeds life. For these people, a kill isn't just meat, it's a covenant between human and beast, survival drawn from sacrifice. After the words, the practical work begins. Hunters drive more spears into her sides, ensuring no lingering breath remains. The air is filled with the copper tang of blood, sharp and metallic, mixing with the smoke drifting from smoldering brush. The ground around you is slick, and your boots slide on the churned mud. It's messy, brutal, and entirely necessary. A woman with a flint blade steps forward, pressing it against the mammoth's hide. Even with the sharpest stone, the first cut takes strength, soaring through thick hair, hide, and the fatty layer beneath. When the blade finally sinks in, a gush of blood spills into the mud, steaming as it meets the cold air. Others join her, carving long slits to open the body for butchering. The hunt has shifted to harvest. But for now the moment remains raw. The finishing of the kill is not just about ending the mammoth's life, it's about confirming the hunter's place in a world of giants. They've faced death, stared into the eyes of a creature that once seemed eternal, and brought it down through patience, courage, and skill. You stand among them, breath steaming, ears still ringing from trumpets and shouts. Around you the Ice Age steppe feels different now, not just vast and dangerous, but conquered, if only for a moment. The first strike has become the first victory. Yet even as laughter ripples through the hunters, you know what comes next will test them further. Killing a mammoth is only half the battle. Butchering, carrying, preserving and protecting the kill that is survival's true work. For now though, the cow lies still, her size both monstrous and miraculous. The hunters' spears are planted in the mud like banners, their breath rising in the dawn air. The finishing blow is complete. The last great hunt moves forward. The giant is down, but now the true work begins. Killing a mammoth is one thing, carving it up and turning it into survival is another. You stand with the hunters as they gather around the carcass, flint blades and bone knives in hand, preparing for the long, grueling task of butchery. The smell hits you first, a wave of hot blood and musky hide, steaming in the cold morning air. It clings to your nose and throat, heavy and metallic, impossible to ignore. The first cuts are deliberate and powerful. A hunter kneels at the belly and drives his flint blade through the thick hide, sawing with steady pressure. The skin is tough, thicker than your hand, and it takes real muscle to split. Others join in, slicing long gashes down the legs and flanks. Blood runs freely, mixing with mud, turning the ground into a red swamp. Children hover at the edges, wide-eyed, while elders keep them back with a firm hand. This is no place for play. One slip of a blade could cut more than mammoth flesh. Once the hide is peeled back, the fat beneath gleams pale and greasy. Hunters scoop it with their hands, smearing some onto their arms, as if instinctively moisturizing against the cold. Fat is fuel burned in lamps, eaten raw, or rendered into cooking grease. They pile it in baskets woven from reeds, careful not to let any go to waste. Next comes the meat. Thick slabs are carved from the legs, shoulders and haunches, lifted by groups of 2 or 3 because no single person can manage the weight alone. Each cut reveals more steaming flesh, marbled with fat, rich and red. Hunters shout instructions, deciding what to carry back first, what to preserve later. Some of the best cuts, tongue, liver, heart, are pulled aside quickly, delicacies to be eaten fresh. Bones are just as valuable as meat. With stone hammers, hunters crack through ribs and joints, prying them apart with grunts of effort. The sound is sickening, a wet crunch that echoes across the valley. Marrow is sucked straight from broken bones, warm and fatty, a quick burst of energy for exhausted hunters. Skulls, ribs, and femurs are set aside carefully. These will form the frames of huts, the handles of tools, the raw material for carving. Nothing will be wasted. Tusks, gleaming and massive, are perhaps the most prized. Two men work to saw through the base of one with flint blades, a slow, painstaking process that takes hours. The ivory is dense and hard, but once freed, it will be shaped into figurines, ornaments, or spear tips. You can almost feel the weight of history in them. These curved arcs of bone will outlast the animal itself, carried as symbols long after the herd has vanished. Even the organs find use. The stomach, emptied and rinsed, can become a water bag. Intestines, stretched and cleaned, make sinew cord or sausage casings. Bladders serve as containers. Hunters joke as they work, grim humor about eating every last part except the smell. You laugh weakly, though the truth is they aren't exaggerating. Hours pass, and the carcass becomes less a beast and more a pile of resources. Neatly organized hides stacked, meat bundled, fat stored, bones set aside. The hunters work tirelessly, rhythmically, each task practiced across generations. They know what must be done quickly. Flesh spoils, scavengers come. Already ravens circle overhead, their harsh cries announcing the feast. Soon wolves will gather at the edges of the valley, their eyes glinting, waiting for scraps or mistakes. The hunters don't fear them, not yet. They post guards with spears, ready to chase off animals bold enough to test them, but they work faster all the same, sweat steaming from their backs despite the cold. The danger of the hunt hasn't ended with the kill. Now the challenge is to preserve it before nature takes it back. You notice the way they divide labor. Some cut, some carry, some guard. Some prepare fires for cooking and drying strips of meat. Women sharpen blades with sandstone. Men haul haunches on makeshift sleds. Older children fetch baskets and chase off scavenger birds. Everyone has a role. No one is idle. The coordination is as impressive as the hunt itself. Finally, as the sun dips low, the hunters step back to survey their work. The cow is nearly unrecognizable now, her once mighty body reduced to heaps of meat, bone, hide, and tusk. A silence falls, not of reverence this time but of exhaustion. Their muscles ache, their hands are bloodied, but their eyes gleam with the satisfaction of survival. The valley smells of blood, fat and smoke. The ground is churned into red mud. Ravens perch on nearby branches, impatient. Wolves pad closer, just out of spear range, their howls rising as darkness creeps in. But the hunters smile through the fatigue. They've carved life from death. You stand with them, sore and weary, but filled with the strange certainty that this, right here, is what it means to endure at the end of the Ice Age. To kill, to cut, to carry, to guard, and in doing so to keep your people alive. The mammoth is gone, but its legacy already lives in the piles stacked neatly before you. Tomorrow, they'll haul it all back to camp. Tonight, they'll feast. By the time the last cuts are made, the sun has already dropped low, and the cold deepens across the valley. Steam still rises from the piles of meat, fat and hide, but now the focus shifts from butchering to transforming the kill into survival. It isn't enough to kill a mammoth, you have to turn it into food, shelter, tools, and fire. Only then does the hunt truly mean life. The hides are the first priority. A single mammoth hide can weigh hundreds of pounds and is so thick it takes several people to drag it. Hunters stretch them across wooden poles, scraping away fat and tissue with flint scrapers until the surface is clean. The hides will be softened with marrow or brains, then smoked to preserve them. Once prepared, they're unmatched for insulation, stitched together into tents, layered over shelters, or used as bedding. You run your hand across one hide and realize it could cover the floor of an entire small house. These aren't blankets, they're walls. The bones, stacked nearby, are more than refuse. Huge leg bones and ribs are perfect as structural supports. You've seen huts from other sites. Circles of mammoth bones arranged like walls, tusks forming archways, hides stretched over the top. Here, hunters set aside the biggest bones, already planning which will form new shelters, which will be split into tool blanks. Smaller bones are cracked open immediately for marrow, the rich, fatty core sucked greedily by children and elders. The sound is distinct, a crunch, a pop, a slurp, and though it makes you grimace, it's also nourishment in its purest form. Tusks gleam in the fading light, curved like frozen waves. Once freed from the skull, they'll be carved into ornaments, spear tips, harpoons, even musical instruments. Hunters know ivory better than modern sculptors know marble. Every curve and flaw is mapped in their minds. You imagine some of these tusks becoming figurines buried with the dead, or jewelry worn by children yet unborn. The mammoth's memory will outlast its flesh. Meat is cut into long strips and draped over wooden racks above smoky fires. The smell fills the valley, rich, savory, primal. Strips will dry into jerky lasting weeks, even months if stored well. Fat is melted in large chunks, dripping into containers made from stomach linings or clay vessels scavenged from nearby camps. Some will be burned in lamps, turning night into something more manageable. Some will be eaten straight, a calorie-dense food that fuels long winters. Even dung has its place. Hunters gather the dried piles, breaking them into chunks for fire fuel. It burns slow, steady, and smokeless, perfect for nights when wood is scarce. You wrinkle your nose, but for these people, it's as valuable as dry pine. And then there are the sinews. Long cords of muscle and tendon are stripped, stretched and dried, becoming thread, bowstrings, lashings. Without sinew, spears fall apart, hides rip loose, arrows break. With sinew, the entire technology of the hunt holds together. You watch a woman thread a needle of bone with a strip of glistening tendon, her hands moving with the rhythm of generations. It's delicate, almost beautiful work, even here among blood and mud. When you step back, you realize nothing of the mammoth goes unused. Hide, bone, tusk, meat, fat, sinew, organs, dung. Every part has a role. The animal is more than food. It's a kit of survival, a walking storehouse of resources. And now that storehouse belongs to the clan. But there's more here than practicality. As the first racks of meat smoke, hunters gather around fires, passing strips of fresh flesh. The best cuts, the tongue, the heart, the liver, are roasted quickly, eaten hot. You chew a piece, rich and greasy, the taste flooding your mouth with a primal satisfaction. The hunters laugh, talk loudly now that the danger is past, their voices carrying far across the valley. Children dart between them, chasing one another with scraps of hide. Elders sit close to the fire, chewing marrow bones, eyes gleaming in the flicker of flame. This is the heart of the mammoth hunt, not just the kill, but the feast. It binds the group together, turning the terror of the chase into the joy of survival. To share food is to share life itself. A hunter who fought in the mud hands a strip of meat to a woman who kept the fires burning. Children who carried baskets taste the marrow alongside the elders who once taught these hunters how to throw a spear. It's all connected, a web of survival spun around the carcass of a fallen giant. As the night deepens, smoke hangs low over the camp and the mammoth's flesh cooks in the glow. The hunters lean back, full-bellied for the first time in weeks, their voices softer now, their laughter trailing into murmurs. Above, the stars burn sharp and cold, untouched by all this earthly struggle. But here on the ground, the hunters know they've earned one more night, one more meal, one more chance to live. The mammoth is no longer a beast roaming the plains. It is warmth, shelter, food, and memory. Its body becomes the body of the people, and as you watch the firelight flicker on their faces, you realize the mammoth's death is not just an ending, it's a continuation of life. The feast doesn't just fill bellies, it reshapes the spirit of the clan. Around the fires, the atmosphere is nothing like the deadly silence of the hunt. Where there was tension, there is now laughter. Where there was risk, there is now reward. You sit among them, the meat greasy in your hands, the smoke thick in your lungs, and you feel the shift. The mammoth has turned danger into community. Everyone eats. There's no strict division tonight. Hunters who risked the charge sit beside elders who kept the stories, children who carried baskets, and women who stoked fires. Strips of liver are passed around, still sizzling from the flames. Tongue, rich and tender, is cut into chunks and shared like treasure. Marrow is slurped loudly from split bones, and no one bothers to wipe the fat from their mouths. Hunger has a way of lowering formality. But the feast isn't just about food, it's about sharing. Every piece passed from one hand to another is a reminder of obligation and connection. A successful hunt isn't the victory of a few brave spear throwers, it's the survival of the entire band. A man who speared the cow hands his first bite to an elder, an offering of respect. A woman who cut the hide gives a piece to a child, laughing as the child drips grease down her chin. The mammoth becomes not just calories but currency of loyalty, binding everyone tighter together. You notice rituals woven into the feast. One hunter dips a bone into blood and smears it across his chest, a gesture of strength. Another tosses a strip of fat into the fire, a gift for whatever spirits dwell there. An elder hums low, a song without words, the kind of sound that feels older than language itself. It's part blessing, part memory, part celebration. The fire pops and crackles in response. sparks floating upward like tiny stars. Children, restless after weeks of lean meals, play games with scraps of bone. They clatter them together, pretending to spear imaginary beasts, copying the movements of the hunt they weren't old enough to join. Their laughter is shrill and bright against the deeper voices of their parents. You realize this is education in its purest form, play rehearsing the skills that will one day keep them alive. The hunters tell stories too. You hear the near misses retold with exaggerated flair. The man who was nearly crushed by a bull acts out his stumble, slipping on mud while others howl with laughter. Another boasts about his perfect dart throw, though his friends groan and insist it barely scratched the beast. The stories ripple outward, shaped with each telling, already beginning to harden into memory. A year from now a child will repeat them, and 10 years from now they'll be carved into a tale of bravery that no one will question. Generosity is as important as bravery. To hoard meat would be unthinkable. The hunters know that their survival depends on trust, that when the next hunt comes, and it's another family who throws the first spear, they too will share freely. Even now you see this in practice. A weaker elder receives a massive portion, while a young strong man makes do with less. There's no resentment. Everyone understands that survival isn't about fairness in the modern sense. It's about balance, about making sure no one falls too far behind. As the night stretches on, the feast turns festive. Someone produces a bone flute, carved long ago from ivory, and begins to play a high, reedy tune. Another beats rhythm on a hollow skull, the sound resonant, deep. People clap along, stamping their feet, shaking necklaces of beads so they rattle like rain. The music weaves through the firelight, filling the valley with sound that pushes back the darkness. The mammoth itself becomes part of the celebration. A child climbs onto its fallen tusk, pretending to ride. A woman traces the curve of ivory with her hand, whispering something like a prayer. A man ties a tuft of coarse mammoth hair to his spear, a charm for future hunts. The beast has shifted in meaning. It's no longer just prey. It's become a symbol, a marker of identity, a reminder of what the people can achieve together. For a moment you lean back, watching the flames lick upward, the stars sharp overhead, the hunter's shadows flickering against the carcass. You realize you're seeing more than a meal. You're seeing the glue that holds a fragile society together, the rhythm of risk and reward, of taking from the land and giving to one another. Without this sharing, without this ritual of generosity, survival at the end of the Ice Age would crumble into hunger and chaos. The fire dies down eventually, embers glowing, sparks winking out. People curl up under hides, stomachs full, minds eased for the first time in weeks. The valley falls quiet except for the occasional crackle of wood and the distant howl of wolves waiting their turn at the scraps. And yet the silence is not empty. It's full of memory, of trumpets and shouts, of spears striking flesh, of laughter over marrow bones. The mammoth has become part of the clan's story now, woven into their lives as surely as the sinew sewn into their clothes. The morning after the feast, the hunters rise slowly, groggy from full bellies, and sore from the strain of the hunt. Smoke still clings to the air, and the valley smells of charred meat, blood and fat. But as the haze lifts, something else fills the camp: reverence. Because the mammoth isn't just food, it's sacred too. All around you, signs of belief emerge. Near the fallen carcass, an elder kneels with a pouch of ochre, sprinkling red powder onto the ground in careful lines. Some hunters bow their heads, others simply watch in silence. The ochre stains the mud, a vivid red that mirrors blood, as if marking the mammoth's spirit in color. The rituals tied to mammoths are ancient, stretching back thousands of years. In caves far to the west, walls are covered in their outlines, drawn in flickering firelight by hands that sought to capture more than shape. At places like Rouffignac or Chauvet, mammoths march in lines across stone, their tusks exaggerated, their bodies rendered in thick charcoal strokes. These weren't idle doodles, they were prayers maybe, or memory made permanent. The hunters here know those same impulses. Though they don't carve walls, they carve ivory. You see one now, a small figure no bigger than your hand, whittled from tusk. It's a mammoth, its back arched, tusks curved, legs stout. The detail is astonishing, the tiny striations in the fur, the deep gouges marking power. A woman holds it, stroking it with her thumb, then sets it on the ground near the carcass, an offering, perhaps to honor the beast, perhaps to call for luck in the next hunt. The dead mammoth itself becomes part of the ritual. Hunters remove the skull carefully, tusks intact, and place it upright near the fire. Smoke curls around it, the ivory gleaming faintly in the light. It becomes an altar of sorts. People toss in scraps of fat, marrow or meat, watching them sizzle in the flames. Gifts for the unseen. You realize the mammoth is more than prey. It's a bridge between survival and spirit, a creature so immense it must belong to both worlds. Songs rise too, low and rhythmic, more like chants than melodies. Men and women hum in unison, stamping their feet, clapping bones together. The sound is primal, pulsing like a heartbeat. A child joins in, giggling at first, then falling into rhythm. The chants are not just noise, they're memory, stories without words, carrying the weight of hunts long past. There are gestures too. One man dips his hand in blood and drags a streak down his chest, another across his face. A woman smears blood across the tusk of the skull, whispering something no one else hears. These aren't performances, they're necessities. For the hunters, failing to honor the mammoth would be dangerous, tempting misfortune. To kill without thanks would be to break the invisible pact that keeps humans alive in a world ruled by beasts and cold. Even children participate. A group gathers near the hide stretched across poles, where they smear ochre handprints along the edge. Tiny red palms overlap, layer upon layer, a living mural that binds them to the animal. They'll grow up remembering this kill, this night, this giant, and when they hunt themselves, they'll repeat the gesture, linking one generation to the next, through blood and color. You recall other evidence, ancient sites where mammoth bones were arranged deliberately, sometimes stacked in circles, sometimes clustered in patterns too neat to be random. These weren't dumps of refuse, they were places of meaning, places where mammoths were more than meat. Here too, you see it happening, ribs laid side by side, tusks balanced like gateways, bones aligned in deliberate lines. Survival demands order, but belief demands pattern. And then there's the fire. Flames dance around offerings, fat hissing, marrow popping, smoke carrying scents. Skyward, people sit close, watching sparks rise, as if they're watching prayers take flight. The mammoth's body is being consumed twice, once by human hunger, once by spirit hunger. Both feed the clan in different ways. In the middle of it all, you hear an elder speak, not loudly, not like a speech, but in a voice steady enough to carry. He tells of hunts from long ago, when herds stretched beyond sight, when men and women stood in greater numbers, when mammoths seemed endless. He speaks of them with respect, even affection, as if these giants aren't just animals but kin, older, stronger, wiser kin. The children listen, eyes wide, chewing marrow as if it's part of the lesson. They'll remember the story, the chants, the ochre, the offerings, and in remembering, they'll keep the mammoth alive long after its body is gone. You feel it yourself, that sense that the mammoth is more than a kill. It's a myth in motion, a creature half in this world, half in another. By killing it, the hunters haven't just fed their clan, they've bound themselves to a story older than memory, a story that will end soon, yes, but that still echoes in every tusk, every bone, every chant by the fire. Tonight, the mammoth is both feast and god, both carcass and symbol, and you're caught in the middle, watching humans at the edge of the ice age cling to survival and meaning all at once. The rituals end, the fires burn lower, and the valley settles into silence, but beneath that silence lies a change that no chant or offering can undo. The world itself is shifting, and both mammoth and human are caught in the middle of it. You feel it in the air, warmer, wetter, different from the deep cold of generations past. The ice age is ending, and the mammoth steppe is vanishing with it. Where once stretched endless grasslands, now shrubs creep in, followed by birch and pine. Forests slowly replace open plains, closing off the wide spaces where mammoths once thrived. The animals that fed on grass, mammoths, woolly rhinos, giant deer, are pushed into smaller ranges. Those that can adapt, like bison and reindeer, cling on. Those that cannot are doomed. The hunters sense this change, even if they don't name it. They talk of herds growing smaller, of tracks harder to find, of journeys longer than before. Where mammoths once roamed in great numbers, now only scattered groups remain. You see it in their eyes, as they speak around the fire, half nostalgia, half worry. They know something is slipping away, though they can't yet imagine a world without mammoths. Climate isn't just reshaping the land, it's reshaping the hunt itself. Rivers swell with meltwater, flooding valleys. Marshes spread, dangerous to both beast and human. The seasons shift unpredictably. Summers longer, winters harsher in bursts. Hunters who once trusted the rhythms of migration now find themselves guessing, following trails that lead nowhere. A missed herd can mean starvation. The mammoths suffer most. Grasslands shrink, cutting their food supply. Calves, weaker than adults, die more easily. Herds, that once numbered in the hundreds, dwindle to a few dozen, then a handful. You see it firsthand in the valley. This herd was smaller than stories told, their calves fewer, their movements hesitant. They're fighting to survive just as much as the hunters are. Other animals vanish too. You hear stories of fewer woolly rhinos, of cave lions gone from the hills, of saber-toothed cats seen only in memory. The Ice Age giants are falling one by one, undone by warming skies and changing earth, and with them go the rhythms that shaped human life for millennia. Still, the hunters adapt. They always have. They turn more to reindeer, elk, and smaller game. They fish more often, casting nets into rivers swollen with meltwater. They gather plants and roots in greater numbers, testing what the forests offer. But nothing replaces the mammoth. No other animal provides so much in one body, so much meat, so much hide, so much bone. Losing them means not just hunger, but the loss of a way of life. The elders know this. They speak in hushed voices of the end of the giants. Some shake their heads, saying the spirits are angry, that hunts have grown careless, that too much has been taken. Others blame the warming earth, though they cannot explain why the sun grows stronger or the cold retreats. A few insist the herds still thrive far away, across mountains or rivers if only hunters can find them. It's a mix of hope and denial, the same way people face every change too big to grasp. You walk the valley the next day and see the evidence with your own eyes. Grass grows patchy, giving way to scrub. Insects hum where once wind swept clear. Birds call from thickets that didn't exist a generation ago. It's beautiful in its own way, but to the mammoth it's a prison. These giants belong to the open steppe, not tangled woods. Each tree that grows is another barrier to their survival. The hunters know it too. When they track mammoths now, they move farther, push harder, risk more, and every time fewer come back successful. The mammoth is slipping into scarcity, and scarcity makes every hunt more desperate. You can feel the stakes rising, the edges sharpening. At night, lying near the fire, you hear a man mutter half to himself, "Someday, our children will never see them." His words hang heavy, swallowed by the crackle of wood. Around him, no one replies, perhaps because they fear it's true. For now though, the mammoth still stands, still roams, still feeds and falls beneath human spears. But the world is shifting under its feet. The Ice Age is ending, and the last great hunts are playing out on borrowed time. The warmth creeping across the land does more than alter grass and rivers. It sharpens the edge of human pressure. As the climate squeezes mammoth herds into shrinking pockets, hunters press harder, following every track, striking every chance. You see it plainly. The mammoth's fate isn't shaped only by melting glaciers but also by spears. The logic is simple. A single mammoth feeds everyone, so every band hunts them whenever possible. Where once there were endless herds, now rival groups shadow the same animals, stalking them across valleys, competing for the prize. The evidence is all around. Overlapping tracks of humans near mammoth trails, butchered bone piles scattered across sites, spear points still lodged in ribs discovered thousands of years later. Each kill leaves scars not only on the landscape but on the species itself. Hunters don't think in terms of extinction, they think in terms of survival. Today, this winter, this clan. To them, the mammoth has always been there, and if the herds feel smaller now, well, maybe the spirits are testing them. Maybe they've just moved farther north. No one yet imagines a future where the plains are silent of trumpets forever. But the pressure is undeniable. Mammoths breed slowly, one calf every few years, carried in the womb nearly 2 full years before birth. For every adult killed, for every calf lost in a hunt or to hunger, replacement comes painfully slow, and the hunters aren't selective. They take cows, bulls, even the young when opportunity demands it. Each success is a triumph for the clan. But for the herds, it's another crack in the foundation. You witness it during another tracking. The hunters follow prints into a shallow ravine, finding a small group, just 2 cows and a calf. Once a band this size wouldn't have been worth the risk. Now hunger drives them to act. The calf trumpets weakly as the hunters close in, its mother shielding it with her body. Spears flash, darts fly, the cow falls and the calf is left alone, calling pitifully. It won't survive long, not without its mother's milk and protection. You feel the weight of it, heavier than any spear. The hunters cheer, yes, but you can see in their eyes a flicker of unease as if even they know the balance is tipping too far. Overhunting leaves its fingerprints in the bones. At sites across the mammoth steppe, piles of skeletons show signs of mass kills. entire groups driven into bogs or off cliffs, slaughtered for food and resources. For the hunters, it meant abundance, enough to stockpile meat and hides. But for the species, it meant populations shrinking faster than they could recover. Humans had become a force of nature, more dangerous than wolves, lions, or even the shifting climate. The irony is stark. Mammoths made humans strong, fed them, clothed them, sheltered them, but that very dependence sharpened a knife against them. The more people relied on mammoths, the harder they hunted, and the faster the giants disappeared. It's a tragic feedback loop, invisible to those living it, obvious to you looking back. At night by the fire, stories are told of great herds seen by ancestors, stretching to the horizon. Hunters shake their heads, saying such tales are exaggeration, but the elders insist, voices firm, no, the plains were once full of them, the ground shook when they moved. Some laugh, disbelieving, but deep down they wonder, what if it's true? What if the world really is emptier now? You feel the tension ripple through the group. They need mammoths, but each kill takes them closer to a world without them, yet no one can stop, not when survival is at stake. To these hunters, tomorrow matters less than tonight's fire, tonight's meal, and so the spears fly and the herds shrink, and the cycle grinds on. Standing in the smoke, you realize you're watching the slow unmaking of giants, not by sudden catastrophe, not by fate alone, but by 1,000 decisions made with no thought for the centuries to come. Each hunt is a victory for the clan, but a step closer to silence for the mammoths. And here in 10,000 BCE that silence is growing louder every year. You leave the valley behind following the hunters farther north, and the signs of scarcity grow clearer with each passing day. The mammoth is no longer a constant presence on the horizon. Tracks are fewer, droppings rarer, bones more often old and weathered than fresh. Where once herds moved like living storms across the steppe, now you see only fragments, small groups clinging to the edges of a shrinking world. The last mammoths survive in pockets. Some are stranded on islands of grass between spreading forests. Others wander the far tundras, thin and weary, their coats patchy, their calves frail. They are not the giants of legend anymore. They are relics, ghosts walking among the living. And yet, the hunters still chase them, driven by hunger, tradition and the fading hope that these giants will always be there. Far to the north, in places you can only imagine, a few herds retreat to isolated refuges. On Wrangel Island, off the Siberian coast, mammoths will linger thousands of years beyond this moment, tiny in number but stubborn in survival. On Paul Island in Alaska, another group will hold on in solitude, cut off from the mainland by rising seas. They will dwindle slowly, step by step, until at last their trumpets fall silent. But here, in 10,000 BCE, the collapse is already written. Each hunt cuts deeper into a thinning population. Each warming year shrinks the grasslands further. You sense the inevitability of it. The mammoth's long reign on Earth is ending, not with a bang but with a slow, grinding fade. The hunters themselves are torn. Some still see the mammoth as the heart of their lives, the great prize that sustains all. Others begin to shift their focus. More time spent fishing rivers, more snares set for deer and hares, more roots and berries gathered. They adapt because they must, but they do so reluctantly, carrying with them the memory of feasts and bone huts, of trumpeting herds and tusks like moon crescents. The younger hunters question their elders. Why chase ghosts when reindeer are plenty, they ask, but the elders shake their heads. To them the mammoth is more than food, it is tradition, honor, a way of proving one's worth. To bring down a mammoth is to join the long chain of ancestors, to step into the rhythm of stories told by firelight. To stop hunting them feels like surrendering not just a beast, but an identity. You walk with them on one last hunt, and the contrast is stark. The herd they track numbers only 3, an old cow, a young bull, and a calf. The hunters stalk them with the same care as before, but there is no illusion of abundance. Every spear thrown feels heavier, every strike tinged with desperation. When the old cow finally falls, the cheers are softer, edged with unease. The hunters know they've taken one of the few left. That night, around the fire, the feast is muted. The meat is good, the fat rich, but the laughter doesn't rise as high. Stories are told of greater days, of herds that thundered like rivers, of hunts where 3 or 4 beasts were taken at once. The younger ones listen with wide eyes, not in awe but in disbelief. To them the mammoth is already a rare prize, a fading echo of the past. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the firelight, wolves howl, waiting for scraps. Ravens circle overhead, as they always do, Life goes on, but the trumpets of the herd are fewer, fainter, the plains feel emptier. You realize you are standing at the twilight of an age. The mammoth's shadow still looms large, but its body is fading. In a few generations, entire bands will grow up without ever seeing one. In a few centuries, they'll be gone from most of the earth, and in a few thousand years, only whispers will remain, cave paintings, ivory carvings, bones buried in ice. You sit by the fire watching hunters chew marrow, listening to the quiet between their words. You know something they don't. This was one of the last great hunts. The giants are leaving, and the world is moving on without them. The world doesn't end with a roar, it fades with a sigh. By the time you walk with the hunters across the thinning plains, the mammoth is no longer the master of the steppe, but a memory clinging to its edges. Each hunt feels heavier, not because the spears are any less sharp, or the hunters any less skilled, but because the herds are smaller, the silences longer, the valleys emptier. In distant refuges, the last mammoths linger. Wrangel Island, cut off by rising seas, will cradle a tiny population for thousands more years, their bodies slightly smaller, their numbers pitiful, their trumpets echoing across tundra that no human hears. On Paul Island, another pocket survives a little longer, until the fresh water runs low and the calves die thirsty. These survivors are whispers in the world's story, holding on even as the age of ice collapses around them. But here in 10,000 BCE the hunters still walk, spears on their shoulders, eyes scanning the horizon. They know the herds are dwindling, though they can't name extinction. They know the hunts grow harder, though they call it fate, and still they pursue the mammoth, because to stop would mean abandoning not just food but identity. The mammoth shaped everything. It fed clans, clothed them, sheltered them. Its bones became huts, its tusks became art, its fat became light in the darkness. Its image was painted on cave walls, carved into figurines, etched into memory. To hunt it was to live was to hunt it. When the mammoth goes, something in the people goes with it. And yet, humans endure. They turn to deer, bison, elk. They fish the rivers and gather roots from the forest edge. They invent new tools, build new shelters, discover that they can live without giants. They adapt, as they always have, carrying forward the echoes of a world that no longer exists. The mammoth may vanish, but the people remain, bearing its story into the future. You sit by a fire one last time, the hunters quiet after a meager feast. Someone hums a tune, low and mournful. An elder stares into the flames, remembering herds that once thundered like storms. A child listens, eyes wide, trying to imagine what no longer fills the horizon. In that child's memory, the mammoth already belongs more to story than to sight. The last great hunt is ending. The giants are gone, but their shadows stretch across the ages, carried in every bone carving, every ochre painting, every whispered story told to children by firelight. They are gone from the earth, but not from the human imagination. And you, standing here at the edge of the Ice Age, realize that survival is never simple. It is always a trade, always a loss. To live, the hunters needed the mammoth, and in needing they helped end it. That is the paradox of humanity: builders, destroyers, survivors, storytellers. The mammoth steps into extinction, humanity steps forward. The age of giants gives way to the age of people. The fire burns low now, only embers glowing softly in the darkness. The voices of the hunters fade into silence, replaced by the hush of night wind moving through the valley grass. The smell of smoke and cooked meat still lingers faintly, but the frenzy of the hunt is long